Hi, welcome to this session on gender studies. This is a short-term course that is organized by MESS Pillai College of Education and Research, Chembur, and we aim with this course to have an outcome of knowing the related concepts on gender and various aspects of gender like gender stereotyping, gender roles, gender identity, and the need for understanding gender in a very important manner. As teachers, we know that we need to take this matter of gender equity, gender equality in our society. And hence, this short term course is aiming towards understanding the various concepts of gender. So, welcome to the course on gender studies. Today's session, we are trying to focus on gender roles and the representation of gender. I, Dr. Reni Francis, Principal of Pillai College of Education and Research, will be taking up today's session. In our topic for today, we'll be taking up with gender roles. We'll be also looking into the nature and factors of gender roles and representation of gender. What are gender roles? Very often we would have heard these statements. Your daughter looks so beautiful and your son is so strong. Shouldn't you be playing with dolls? Why don't you have trucks or cars to play? These sentences we have noticed in our society being used very, very commonly. Have you noticed that gender roles in society can influence how a person describes other people or even children? People will say a baby is pretty if they think it's a girl, and the baby is big and strong if they believe it's a boy. Gender roles in society. We often talk about gender roles in society, and what does gender roles mean? Gender roles in society means how we are expected to act, speak, dress, groom, and conduct ourselves based on our assigned sex. In our last session yesterday, you would have now come to know the difference between sex and gender. For example, girls and women are generally expected to dress in a typically feminine way and be polite, accommodating, and nurturing. There are a few definitions that we would like to look up in gender roles. The World Health Organization describes gender roles as socially constructed roles, behaviors, and activities and attributes that a given society considers appropriate for men and women. Bloch in 1973 stated, gender role is a constellation of qualities an individual understands to characterize males and females in his or own culture, in his or her own culture. These qualities include activities, roles, relation, social position, personality characteristics, and a host of abilities and behaviors. We have been able to look at these specific definitions of gender roles. Now let's look into some of a deeper aspect of gender roles. A teacher, doctor, nurse, plumber, secretary, automotive technicians. When you read these jobs, did you assume what gender of person worked that job? Yes. Society tells us that traditionally women are in a nurturing profession, such as a teacher, nurse, and men are in an intelligent or a physical jobs, such as doctors, plumbers, or technicians. This instance is just one example of the wide impact that gender roles have in our lives. Gender roles are the expectations, stereotypes, and behavior expected of people because of their gender. These expectations come from societal norms, or it could be gender roles, can be expectations about someone's personality, job, appearance, behavior, and even voice. Since modern society based itself upon older cultures where the men did all the work while the women stayed at home and raised children. These elements are still prevalent today. Of course, there are cultural differences within subgroups of many different societies that we see that we'll be looking into in general as gender norms. What is the nature of a gender roles? When we talk about the nature of gender roles, we need to understand how gender roles are determined in a society. Gender roles are learned behavior. They are behaviors that we see are emulated or imitated based on our societal norms. We see certain behaviors, we want to replicate it because we feel they are the ideal forms of behavior expected from a particular gender. These roles also vary in their social, economic, and political dimensions across cultures. Values and norms differ widely from culture to culture. So when we talk about a nature of a gender role, we have to also imagine the society that we are in, the prevalent society, and the roles being shifted across the various societies that we are interacting with. Gender roles have certain universality, but are largely culturally determined. They are universal in nature. We see it across all the states, all the countries, all the mankind that we see. We find these kind of universal tendencies of associating gender and gender role, but they are also determined by certain culture. Gender roles are affected by a number of factors such as age, class, race, ethnicity, religion, and ideologies, in addition to the geographical, economical, and political environment. Roles may sometimes be complementary or even conflicting. We always find ourselves in a specific situation where we speak about the expected role of a gender in a particular situation. We might have heard many a times that boys do not cry, girls are more emotional. These are socially constructed behavior or behavioral norms that we see people trying to emulate or imitate in their society to match as per the societal needs. Gender roles are the expectations, they are stereotypes and behavior expected of people because of their gender. These expectations comes from societal norms, and they are also about culture and being personal. So gender roles are also cultural and personal. They determine how males and females should think, speak, dress, and interact within the context of the society. Learning plays a vital role in this process of shaping gender roles. These gender schemas are deeply embedded cognitive frameworks regarding what defines as masculine and feminine. So when we are talking about gender roles, we also need to understand about certain factors that determine gender roles. Personality traits is one among those factors that we speak about determining gender roles. Women are often expected to be accommodating and emotional. We feel that yes, as a girl or as a woman, you need to accommodate to the current situation. You can't be asking for too much because you are supposed to live within the boundaries that are expected by the society. While men are expected to be self-confident and aggressive. In the earlier times, in our culturally constructed society, men were considered to be breadwinners, and hence it was seen to it that for them to go out and work and earn a living for their family, it's important for them to be always charged up or marching ahead to move ahead and see that their family needs are met. So there's a kind of it seems to be more of aggression, more of self-confidence, more of working hard, and more of trying to meet ends to meet the family needs. The other factor that determines gender role is domestic behaviors. Some people expect that women will take care of their children, cook, and clean the home, while men take care of finances, work on the car, and do the home repairs. If we also look into a certain kind of media and text, we will always find this kind of a discrimination that is seen or depicted in media and text, where it shows that the mother cooks food at home while the father is off to work. We see that the mother is holding the baby and waving out to the father who's going to work in his car. These are certain factors which also have been carried out over the years which determine the role of gender. Role of gender is also determined through occupation. Some people are quick to assume that teachers and nurses are women and that pilots, doctors, and engineers are men. In a couple of sessions that I have been conducting, I have always asked this kind of a question where I have given them names of a boy and a girl and two professions, that is an engineer and a cook. Most of the times I have received the girl to be associated to cook and a boy to be associated to the occupation of being an engineer. And at this point of time, it becomes important for us to understand why are we determining or why are we labeling professions or occupation based on gender. This kind of a norm that we see in the society is something that we need to break the glass ceiling. We need to think beyond that. It is not necessary that a particular gender or the name to a particular gender is associated to a particular occupation or a profession. Factors determining gender roles also aim at physical appearance. Women are expected to be thin and graceful, while men are expected to be tall and muscular. Men and women are also expected to dress and groom in ways that are stereotypically to their gender. Men wearing pants and short hairstyles, women wearing dresses and a bit of makeup. These factors also try to bring out that norms that a society expects a gender to dress up or to have a physical appearance. And that's why we see a lot of things that are happening in our society today where body shaming or body mapping is also considered as one of the factors in determining the gender role. Let's move further. We are talking about a society today, and here are we taking up this short-term course to just understand the role of gender in our society. We are taking up with few examples also to help us understand the role of society in our life. Gender roles vary greatly depending on where you live, as stereotypes differ from country to country and from the various cultures. However, there are a few general guidelines you can keep in mind. There are some of the most common gender stereotypes. One among them, which is very, very common and seen across the globe, is women in the kitchen. One of the most common and hurtful stereotype is that women should be the ones taking care of the cooking. For example, while men are expected to leave the house to work for a job, and women are expected to welcome them back with prepared meals. a very common example that you see about gender roles in the society. The other gender roles that we see in the society is the domestic chores. Again, the things that we see in the house, the work that is done at home. In the same vein, some societies also expect women to take care of most of the chores related to the household. If you see today in our society, in our vicinity, we witness that women are supposed to cook, even if they are one among the breadwinners, or if they share a role of taking care of the family in going to work, they are still expected to do the household chores, to cook, and to complete all the responsibilities in spite of going to work, not being staying at home. So they are also moving ahead in the same level that they were previously been doing, being indoors. So that's one more aspect that we really need to understand with respect to the domestic chores that happen. Because they should be the ones who are staying at home. So they should be taking care of the cleaning, cooking, taking care of kids, and all other tasks, whether it is shopping, buying vegetables or grocery, across the things, it is their need. If there is anything that the house needs, it's the duty of the woman to take care of the needs and see to it that the needs are met. Masculinity is another common example of gender role. The idea of masculinity is a stereotype imposed on men, and they are expected to be strong, muscular, and tall. A frail child is always ridiculed. A frail male child or a boy child is always ridiculed, saying that, oh, you're so weak. How can you be so weak? You look like a girl, you behave like a girl, you can't be so weak. These are certain social stigmas that our society has been not, trying to bring up every time, and we need to nip this off from the root level. Personality wise, this stereotype dictates that men should be dominant and aggressive. And the word I would like to highlight here is dominant, because the moment the society expects the men to be dominant, that's a very, very crucial area that we need to highlight, is because they try to dominate over the opposite gender, opposite sex, that is woman. And because of the dominance, they try to look into that aspect of how they are subdued, or they are ridiculed, or they are kept at within their limits, and not helping them to be a part of equity and equality. Men are also considered to never leaving room for more measured or sensible thoughts. So they are always the ones who will have the brightest ideas. They are considered to be the one who will come out with solution. They are considered with as one who is able to take the right decision. As we have looked into these aspects very clearly, even before, and when we were discussing about gender roles, we have looked into the gender schemas. And like we said, it is deeply embedded. There are various socializing agents, such as parents, teachers, peers, movies, television, music, books, and religion. They teach and reinforce gender roles throughout the lifespan. Parents probably exert the greatest influence, especially when the children are quite young. Sociologists also know that adults perceive and treat female and male infants differently. Parents probably do this in response to their having been recipients of gender expectations as young children. Traditionally, fathers teach boys how to fix and build things, whereas mothers teach girls how to cook, sew, or keep the house clean. Children then perceive parental approval when they conform to gender expectations and adopt these culturally accepted and conventional roles. all of this is reinforced by additional socializing agents, which we just mentioned about, that is the peers, the media, the school, and many others. The values of the parents and society is being passed along to the children of the successive generations. Gender roles adopted during childhood normally continue till their adulthood. At home, people have certain practices, that they presumptions that they are supposed to do. They have financial responsibilities, and so on. At work, people also have presumptions about power, position, the division of labor, and organizational culture. None of this is meant to imply that gender roles in themselves are good or bad. They merely exist, and gender roles are realities in almost everyone's life. What are certain patterns of inequalities that we see in gender? The few inequalities that we see in gender is in political power and representation. Women are often underrepresented in informal decision-making structures, including governments, community councils, or policy-making institutions. Inequality is also seen in economic participation and opportunities. In most of the countries, women and men are distributed differently across the sectors, with the sectors with respect to economic participation and opportunities. Women are receiving lower wages for a similar work and are more likely to be low paid jobs and unsecured jobs. Maybe it could be part-time or temporary or home-based jobs, and are likely to have less access than men to productive assets such as education, skills, property, and credit. The other pattern of inequality that we generally see is the educational attainment. In most of the countries, women having lower literacy rate, lower level of enrollment in primary, secondary, and the tertiary education. The other pattern of inequality that we are also noticing here is the sexual and domestic violence. Women tend to be more often, very much to a large extent, often victims in a form of domestic violence by a woman's intimate partner or sexual exploitation through trafficking and sex trade, in wars by an enemy army, or as a victim of ethnic cleansing, etc. So many aspects. We have been hearing it day in and day out in various media. Differences in legal status and entitlements. There are many instances in which legal rights, equal rights to property, status, security, land, inheritance, and employment opportunities are denied to women by law and practice. There are certain gender roles that are very, very clearly seen in our society. Can you think about some of now we have been talking about so many gender roles. Can you think of some examples of gender roles? Remember, gender roles can be the physical job or part that the person is expected to play, but also stereotypes that influence our view about a person. Girls play with dolls and boys play with cars. Gender reveals parties where pink means the baby is a girl and where blue means a baby is a boy. Girls wear skirts, whereas boys wear pants. Women in education and men in engineering or mathematical or more knowledge-based mental activity things. A man cannot show his emotions while a woman should show her emotions. Girls are good at reading, whereas boys are better at math. Women should not speak out or raise their voice, otherwise, they will come across as loud, while men should be having a lot of position in getting their views across and to be seen as powerful. So, how does gender impact their roles in the society? Unfortunately, gender roles, stereotypes, and impacts transcended our lives before we ever even were aware of it, or before we even knew what stereotype was. From childhood, we get a conditioned practice to act in a specific manner that is aligning to our gender, making it so challenging to have preferences outside the gender room or the gender space. Were you ever gifted to a gift or to a present that was not in alignment to your gender? You need to think about it. Probably no, since it has been so ingrained in our life, since as children we have been just practicing it, it makes it harder to understand the problems until we are old enough to make amendments. The older generations condition the younger generation or continue to transcend the same values to the younger generation, with the traditional gender roles perpetuating the entire circle. And then this entire circle brings out to understanding the need to have the representation of gender in our society. How do we represent gender in our society? Like we looked at this particular picture, if we see, gender is represented in many forms. Look at this picture, which says about a girl, about a lady, and this is she. We are talking about she. And here, the photographs are stereotypical presentation of women, emphasis on sexuality or relationship. The topics that are put up here is how I lost my baby weight, how to be happy this spring, shop the drop, be better, feature someone on emotions. So representing women is one particular or one very, very crucial aspect that we need to look into when we are talking about gender. How do we think women are represented up, or how do we think women are presented in a normal scenario? How do we present women? Do we present them in the generally socially accepted constructed norm of the society, or do we represent women as they are? And that's something very important that we need to look at. Representing women in the media have developed and changed over the times, with the time to reflect the cultural and sociological changes in the society. However, female stereotypes continue to appear in some of the media texts. Looking at the various advertisements, the movies, the media projecting the role of women, there's a lot of change that we have been seeing over the times. We have seen the change that women are put up. They are no longer considered to be people inside the four walls of the house, but they are given an open window to move out, to walk forward, to look into the various things that they can do. Education is knocking the doors of every woman, helping them to study, to be employed, to be at par in the society. Equity and equality opportunities are provided for women. Women are not always shown in media as subdued. Women also have been presenting or represented in a way such that we have a say, they have a say, they have an opinion, and their views are also considered. Representation of women are often defined by how men see women, termed the male gaze, or how society expects women to look or behave. Many representations of women concentrate on sexuality and emotions. Others focus on the relationship with their children or romantic partners. We need to understand that women do not need the subjectification of their thoughts. They don't have to be considered as a subject or an object, but they have to be considered as a person to be having equal space in the society, to be considered for equal rights, equal opportunities, equal preferences, equal ideologies, and to be accepted in the society. And this mind shift is important for every woman to be having a very specific gender role in the society. When we talk about women representation, we should also focus on men representation. How are men represented in the society? Or what role does men play in the society? Or how are they looked up in the society? Masculinity is a concept that is made up of more rigid stereotypes than femininity. A male is always considered to be more powerful, to have more voice, to have a stronger opinion, to have a stronger voice, to have a stronger position in the society than females. Representation of men across all media tend to focus on the following. First, which is usually seen and generally seen, and media depicts that the strength, the physical strength, and the intellectual strength. Men are always trying to been always showcased as they're physically strong to handle any kind of issues, to handle any kind of challenges, and they are physically strong enough to move ahead, march ahead. Wherein at the same time, women are shown to be subdued or to be laid back or to some extent to be have to be seen with withdrawal symptoms when as compared to men. Men are also considered to be strong mentally or intellectually, where they can take proper decision making, or they have the capacity to think wider, broader, and to be the decision making or to be a problem solver. The other aspect that we are looking into representing men is also the power, the position that they hold. Power is not just the physical power, but it is the position, the decision making position, the right to decision making, the right to problem solving, the right to have think beyond the odds and come up with a decision. So the power to think and to take a decision. Sexual attractiveness, which may be based on the above, that is about the strength or the physique, and also the independence of thought, action, and finances. That's another aspect that when we talk about men in the society, we are looked into that these roles are also played by men of having independence to take the right decision, to take the decision that they would like to take up. Now, with these representations and with these understanding of the men and the women, there are various roles that are changing. There are changing gender roles in the society, and we need to understand this and we need to take care of these roles. So now that you understand what are gender roles, you also need to know that you may be inclined to bring in a change. Or you might be thinking, how could I or we could be the agent of change in these constructed, fixed or specified gender roles. A change in gender role has to be a gradual process. It cannot be a swift process. It will be a gradual process. And one of our attempt in taking up this short-term course on gender studies is one attempt to bring about a change, a gradual process that will bring about a change in gender role. To change gender roles, you need to understand some outside societal influences that impact that with continuation of gender roles. There are a lot of societal factors that continuously impact gender roles and what changes you need to do. One, let's take up with parents. Someone's upbringing is influenced by how they view gender roles. If a person is raised in a conservative, traditional home, they will most likely have traditional gender views. However, if someone's parents are more liberal and unconventional, they would likely impart more modern gender views on their child. Family. Family refers to extended family outside of the people who the child lives with. If a family only buys and exposes the child to toys or opportunities in line with their gender stereotypes, that can influence the child's perception of gender norms. So you need to be very careful when you buy toys. Don't be always trying to buy the things which are gender related or gender norm structured. Think beyond. Friends, peer influences are extremely important part of our life. Typically, we are surrounded ourselves with people all around who share the same interests and views as we do, reinforcing the pre-existing beliefs. So we need to also understand the choice of friends that we have and not be so mixed with a group that has a very conventional thought or a traditional thought of a gender. Media, a very, very influencing factor today. Media is a high or a huge influence that often cannot be controlled by parents, depending on what the child is exposing themselves to. Traditional gender roles either can be encouraged or discouraged. Media can include the news, the social media, the television, the shows, the movies. We have every kind of advertisement, everything. Whatever is up on the social media or the internet, everything becomes a very high influencer in bringing about a change in the thought of gender roles in the society. So, by understanding all these influences and their impact, people can now begin to bring about a change in the gender roles in the society. So, let's take this as one opportunity where we can think about changing a gender role and thinking about how next are we going to change our mindset when we are faced with a situation of having a gender constructed society, not following the norms, but also giving us space to accept the gender the way they are and to be they and help them to be what they are to be and not be always under the same impression or on the same stereotyping that men have to be men and women have to be women. It's not always pink for girls and blue for boys. That's much more beyond that and much more beyond what we are seeing. Thank you so much.